You're listening to How I See It, hosted by Han. You guessed it, that's me. I am here to motivate and inspire you with guests from all different industries and backgrounds. So get ready for personal stories of success, of growth, full of highs and lows, and of course, unapologetic realness. This is How I See It. You guys, I'm so excited. Someone who I have wanted to come on the podcast since the very first week we launched is here. Sivan Ayla Richards is here. I'm sure you guys know who she is, but if you don't, she is a creator. She's an influencer. She's the founder of Lux Unfiltered and Shop Tan Lines. She's the queen of tan. She's the queen of Instagram stories. Also pledges to be unapologetic, just like we do here. So Sivan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. What a warm welcome.
Oh, I'm so excited. Like I told you, I just have to start by saying, you are the reason I started blogging and content creating. I would not be here if it wasn't for you.
I don't even know what to say to that.
I don't know if you remember, but I've DM'd you at milestones. You probably get so many DMs, but I've been like, I hit 10K. Thank you. Seriously, I feel like at that time, because I've been following you since 2017.
Oh my gosh.
From the beginning.
So before I even was I had children, nothing.
No, yeah. And I don't even think you had the product, no product, nothing.
Yeah.
I feel like at that time, influencing has changed a lot, obviously. And no one was actually being themselves online.
Right.
So when I saw you doing that, I was like, oh my God, this girl is just kind of putting it all out there. She's being her unapologetic self. I could totally do that too. And especially for me, a girl who loved fashion, who was also depressed. I was I want to start sharing this stuff too. But I was kind of nervous. And so I think you doing that and kind of paving the way really gave me the confidence to do it too.
I love that.
And just for context, take us back. Where did this all begin? I'm assuming you did not plan on actually being a content creator.
No, I never did. I started off in a very traditional job. I worked in the fashion district in LA, and long story short, I essentially was laid off because the company was going under, and I had a choice to make. I could either go back into the grind. I was commuting really far from the Valley to downtown LA. For those who know, you know. It was a rough way to live your life every day. You were severely underpaid as well. So it was just sort of an opportunity for me to pivot. And I've always been a creative person, and I felt like I had a lot to offer. And through my experience of working with brands in wholesale, I saw an opportunity to work with them on their content. At the time, I wasn't really thinking social. It was more I can help you with your website, your lookbook, your logos, just more creative stuff that I was familiar with. And then it sort of evolved into content creation. And during that same time, I started my blog as a side hobby. It was not at all intended to make money or to get famous or anything of the sort.
Yeah.
I don't even think the perks were there yet. It was super early days.
Yeah, I feel back then it was just there was a couple people that were big time, almost celebrity level, but no one was blogging full time.
No, and no one was showing their personality really. So I had been following these girls, very editorial and curated and stunning and very aspirational. I was not living a life like that. I lived in my apartment. I had no money. I was very, very scrappy with what I would do. I kind of started off my blog as a DIY platform, just sharing things, little bits and pieces of my life, just whatever I was doing at the time.
And how old were you at this point?
I was 22.
Okay.
22 or 23, really young, early 20s. And essentially what I did for a while is I creative consulted for brands. I started my blog just for fun, but I started to treat my blog kind of as a job. And my husband was helping me shoot my content or my boyfriend at the time, I should say. A couple years into that, he was like, I feel like you're spending so much time doing this. Maybe we should treat this as a job or not do it at all, because it's kind of a big chunk of time that we're dedicating to something that's just a hobby.
Yeah.
And I just was dragging him into it.
Were you guys almost in the mindset of we have to create opportunities for it to be a job because it wasn't as popular for it to be a job?
Yeah, it was I had been reached out to here and there for gifting, trade, very minor little things. And that was very exciting at the time. I didn't even realize that was a thing. And again, I had no followers and no like readership. So it was very exciting for me to get anything. But there was like a turning point for me when I got married. So this was like the era of Instagram where the explore feed actually like meant something and you could discover
Algorithm
people.
was good.
Algorithm was really good. And I remember I hit 10K at my wedding in Greece.
Wow.
And it was a destination wedding. And that was also kind of like, maybe it wasn't a new concept, but to like the social media world, it was new. And like we hadn't seen a lot of destination weddings happening at that point. And I also was young. I mean, I was 27 when I got married. So now fast forward, this is like 5 years into like having this blog, zero traction, zero really anything. 10K followers obviously is more than the average person, but it was still not enough for me to like abandon my day job.
Well, especially at that time when you hit 10K, it was like you got the link. Like
Yes,
back then they didn't
yes.
have like any of that.
Yes, exactly. You gotta swipe up.
Yeah.
So
You made it.
Yeah, exactly. So it was kind of a big deal. But then coming home from that was when I decided, okay, I'm gonna actually like stop doing my creative consulting and I'm gonna focus on the blog and see how it goes. I kind of like in my head, without saying it out loud, gave myself like a year. And this was 1 year after I got married, so I was going to continue to travel. I was like, I'm basically free. I'm going to go. Any opportunity I got, I went. It was actually great that I did that because I ended up going to events more, networking, meeting so many people. I was invited to Revolve events and I had hardly any followers and compared to the people that were going.
And when you get the Revolve email, it's like,
yeah,
it's a big deal.
It's
not
a big
that it's
deal.
not a still big deal, but I think it's so like there's so many people now that it's more popular. But when that first email came into me, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I made it.
Exactly. No, I mean, and they've done an amazing job with their whole influencer program. But yeah, it was a huge deal back then for me to be involved in anything. So I remember I got invited to a few things with them, a couple trips. And from there, it just sort of like snowballed. I felt like I just didn't stop. And I realized like to keep the momentum going, you can't stop. And I kept hitting more milestones. The more I would show my personality online, the more I spoke, the more I showed my sense of humor, the more I showed my life. It was kind of like I unlocked this whole new layer of influencing that hadn't been done because, you know, like we said, everything was curated and editorial. And I was literally like cussing, showing messiness, showing like, you know, bickering and bantering with my husband. And I just felt like that was my life. And why would I try to pretend anything else?
Yeah.
So people really resonated with that. And I just continued to grow. And of course, like at this point, you know, you have the life moments. You get married, you buy a house, you have a child, you renovate, and like that's just more content opportunities that people really, really like to tune into. So it felt like it just kept going. And then, you know, fast forward to now, and I feel like I'm a grandma in the space.
Yeah, no. Were you like always unfiltered? Like, where did this come from? Like, we call it unapologetic here. I know you call it unfiltered because of the brand.
Right.
Like, did you always just not give a fuck? Like, take us back to like your childhood. Like, where'd you grow up? Did this attitude kind of develop with time, or have you always been like this?
Yeah, I mean, I was raised by a very like tough love mom. So it was like a no bullshit household. She cussed. It was very much like what you see is what you get, and you're always very honest, direct, and pretty confrontational. I don't find myself to be confrontational at all, actually. It's like something I really dislike.
Yeah, you're dishonest.
Yeah, but I'm honest, and I feel like, you know, moving around a lot, I also had to constantly make new friend groups, and I was always judged for like the outside stuff. So like I lived in Hawaii, for example, and I was very obsessed with the movie Clueless, and I wanted to wear those outfits, right? Like I was like 12 years old wearing these like ridiculous outfits to school where kids are in flip-flops and like, you know, exactly as you imagine Hawaii. And I was picked on for it, and then I moved back to California for high school, and I knew nobody in this like massive school. And again, like fashion was always just in my DNA, and so people would always like laugh at like my like really fancy outfits, and I just had to learn how to have a thick skin and to not let it affect me. But at the same time, it can be misconstrued as being cold or standoffish, and it's like that's really not who I am. It's just that I've put up this like guard to just kind of like let things like just bounce off of me versus let it affect me.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I've been the same way too, though. Like I think I grew up in a very like unemotional household, or at least like household that didn't like value my feelings or like make me feel safe in my feelings.
Yeah.
And so like I think I became almost overly jaded growing up to a point where it did, and maybe to a fault of my own, get a little bit misconstrued because I became so jaded and harsh, and I've had to like refine it over the years.
Yeah.
How have you refined it?
I've done therapy. I've had to. It's like it almost reached a point where I also have such a demanding lifestyle and job. There's so much pressure and responsibility on my shoulders that I feel like I have armor on at all times. And whether it's emotional or just like work related or whatever it is, as a mom, you have to be tough. It's like there's so many different things that I've had to like reprogram myself to just be a human and feel things and feel okay feeling things and ultimately just soften. I think that that's been a big struggle for me over the years, and I've had to learn how to do that. The unapologetic, like unfiltered stuff is like very correlated to all of it. I've got the armor on, I'm like protecting myself, but I also like really genuinely don't care if people don't like me. Like it doesn't like, I'm not crying about it behind closed doors, and I'm not like losing sleep over it, but I think it's like made me have this very thick skin to a point where it's like people that are closest to me are like, hi, let me in, you know?
Yeah, no, totally. So, I think unapologetic, unfiltered, it's like evolved over the years, like with my own healing.
Right.
And I think now it's a representation of like, I've spent so many years as a child, like kind of like questioning like my feelings and intuition when I've already always been, and it seems like you two, like very intuitive and confident, like you know who you are, whether it's like fashion or like the feelings you have. And so when people kind of like don't validate it or see you, you start to like shift and change. And that's when we can get like sick and get depressed or anxious or whatever. So I think it's been like refining over the years, like unapologetic actually just means like being aligned with exactly who I am and what I believe, not like being super harsh and mean.
Yeah. I mean, that was like a common question for me throughout this journey as a creator. People would ask all the time, like, so like you just don't give a fuck, like that's what that means. And I'm like, no, like it's not. Like I'm actually like a very deeply caring person, and like I feel like I have so much empathy for people, but it's just that I am confident in what I believe in and what I like and what I don't like. And I feel like that makes me very decisive and kind of like, I just know what I want. And I speak my mind and I'm not afraid to do so, but it's like, there's a fine line there. And I think people can like misconstrue that as like, you just don't care about things, which is completely not the case.
Totally. And I think even when you started, TikTok did not exist. Like people were not so like honest online or even saying things like, don't give a fuck. So I do think you were like a trailblazer there. So I could see why people are like, what do you mean by that?
I know. Yeah, that's a good point.
You brought up therapy.
Yeah.
What brought you there? Like, were you always going to therapy? Was this something new?
No, it's new. So I think it was 20, we're in 25. So yeah, 24. I kind of look back at it as my year of like self-reflection. I sort of, not to say I took a step back from my company because I never have been able to do that, which is fair, it's young, but I kind of shifted focus on myself that year. I kind of went into it as my resolution to really take care of my mental health. I feel like I shoved it to the side for so many years. Was like, we don't have time for meltdowns, we don't have time for breakdowns and crying and, you know, emotions. Like, you just got to power through things. And I was like in this cycle of, I'll get past this week and it'll like be okay. And then it's just like never ending. And you're like, a year goes by and you're like, okay, never had a break this whole year.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was a combination of things. It was like me recognizing that I needed to like focus on myself, but also having 2 kids and entering this like new stage of life with them was challenging for me because it was suddenly like I'm raising people, not just babies that don't speak. So as silly as that sounds, it's like, you know, I'm a reader, but like reading these parenting books was not doing it for me. So I was like, I need to like talk through my real life scenarios with somebody, get some like actual advice and not social media. God, I stopped doing that years ago. But
I know. Even like side note, like I was looking for a new therapist recently and I was like, I can't get a coach. Yeah. I don't want a coach. I want someone who has like their doctrine that like went to fucking school for this.
Tells you exactly what to do. Like I don't want like loose, like vague advice. I want like very specific instruction. I'm like, just tell me what to do. So, you know, it was like a combination of things. I also, you know, like the softening thing, like my husband and I, like one of our points of contention in our relationship in general has always been that he's like, you don't need to be so tough with me all the time. Like, it's fine. Like, I know you're tough. I know you're a bad bitch, but like, you're still my wife and like, you need to like soften with me. And, you know, I took that to heart. And in 24, I was like, this is the year. I'm just going to go. We're going to like talk through all these things. I had a checklist on my phone, pretty much coming with like an agenda every time I went to therapy. I was like, here's what we're talking about today.
You're such an entrepreneur. We are literally the same person. My therapist was like, you talk so fast and you like intellectualize and you know exactly what's wrong, but like we need to feel.
Right.
We need to feel our feelings. And I think that's the problem sometimes is like when you grow up in a space where like, even if it's not toxic, it's like just feelings aren't accepted. You don't really know how to express them. You can like say it and you know how you feel, but you don't actually feel feel
Right,
it.
right.
And something you said on our call before that I thought was super profound is that you were trying to get your kids to identify their feelings, but you didn't know how to do it yourself.
Yes.
When did you realize that? Like, was there kind of like a moment?
Yeah, it was actually in therapy because my therapist had used an example of like, when you're trying to teach your kids to like name that emotion, because that's like a very common thing to teach like toddlers. And I was like, yeah. And she goes, so you do that, name the emotion. Because I'd give her scenarios and I'd be very like rational, logistic, explaining things. And she's like, but you're telling me all the like the logistics, but tell me how those things made you feel. Like what it brought up, what came up. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I literally don't know. I'm like, am I sad? Am I mad? Am I hurt? Like, what is it? And I sort of realized, like, how am I teaching my kids how to identify their emotions when, like, I literally don't know how to do that. Obviously, like, I can tell if I'm, like, happy or sad, like, very drastic polar opposites. But, like, to be very, like, granular with it, I don't know. And I'm still working on it to this day. Like, there's some times where I'm like, wait, am I, like, hurt or am I pissed?
Yeah.
Like, it's, like, really hard to determine, like, which one it is because I never really was taught that. And I don't think I was, like, in an environment that ever fostered me recognizing those things. Like, no one was asking me these things.
Totally.
So.
It's so funny. Like, the moment that my therapist a couple years ago was like, angry is really just hurt. I was like, what? And she was like, yeah, you're just really hurt. You just want to be seen. And I was like, what? And then I was like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. The entire time I'm just like begging people to see me, and that's why I'm angry. And I told you on the phone that like I subconsciously named the blog like How Han Sees It.
Yeah.
And then I realized like, oh my God, I've just been craving to be seen this entire time.
Yes.
But then it's this weird toxic cycle because you don't let anyone in.
Yes.
And then you're pissed that they don't see you.
Right.
And I'm like, what the actual fuck am I doing?
Yeah.
Did you notice that too?
I did notice that. It was like that my therapist would say to me things like, it sounds like you need to be validated. And I've always like prided myself on like, I don't need outside validation. Like that doesn't like, that's not a thing for me. But for the people that are closest to me, like I do want to be validated by them. I do want to be seen and heard by them. And that was a big deal for me. Like a big like realization was that I was just looking for validation, even if it's small things, even if I'm just calling to complain to you. Like, I don't need you to tell me the solution. I need you to just be like, oh, that sucks. I'm sorry. Like, help it, whatever. Just simple things like that where I feel like a lot of times it's either like brushed, dismissed.
Yeah.
I don't like to feel dismissed by the people that are closest to me.
Totally. I think I feel that way too. And I spent a lot of time thinking it was everybody else's fault. Mm-hmm. And I actually think it was kind of my fault too, where like I would like approach sharing my feelings and getting vulnerable from a place that didn't seem like I needed validation.
Yes.
And I think sometimes when you're like so confident and you're like, as Paul would say, like a bad bitch.
Yeah.
And you're like entrepreneurial and you like have your shit down and you're like coming at sharing your feelings in a way that's so like packaged.
Right.
People don't realize that you need them to validate your feelings, and then you're like pissed that they don't.
Right.
And so I've been trying to get better at being like, I actually like don't feel good about this, and I don't want a solution from you. I just need you to like kind of be here for me because I'm stressed.
Yeah. No, that's great that you can like communicate that too. I feel like I also noticed that I was doing the thing that I didn't like to people around me because in a way, in my head, I think this is like what I've like told myself is why I was doing it, is like if someone came to me and was complaining about something or telling me something shitty, I would try to be like positive and make it almost feel like it's going to be okay, like we're going to get through this, you'll be fine, like kind of reassuring them. But then in my head, I'm like, well, then they didn't get the validation from me. So like, I'm doing the same thing to them. It's not that I'm dismissing it or like downplaying it, but I'm also just trying to like help you feel better.
Yeah.
But I
or
feel
avoiding emotional vulnerability a little bit.
I'm just like, that's not what makes me feel better. So like, why am I doing this to other people? So it's kind of like helped me program how I think and respond to things. I often need a reminder. Like I'll catch myself being like, you're going to be fine. Like it's not a big deal. And then I'm like, oh my God, like I'm doing the thing that I don't like. So it's hard. It's hard to like completely change a habit that I've been doing my whole life.
Totally. I think the rewiring process is the hardest, and people are always like, do the work, and then they have like a realization and they're like, awesome, I'm fixed.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, like you have to actually integrate for like how many years you've been alive doing the same thing. And like I talk a lot in the pod about like practicing the pause and like thinking about like ABC, like which one am I going to do today? And you have to actually be like really thoughtful about what you're doing because I mean, we're taught this at such a young age, right? Like treat others the way you want to be treated.
Right.
But I actually have found, like, if I treat people exactly the way I want to be communicated with, treated, talked to, like, they do start to mirror and it does start to shift things.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, yeah, lead by example. I mean,
Yeah.
it takes a lot of like patience and like just kind of discipline. Like you got to like pause. Like you said, the pause is so important because my reaction to things can be so escalated and heated in the moment. I'm also such a fast-paced person that like I immediately want to have a response or an answer or like my next move lined up, and I'm like, no, like take a minute. First of all, like calm down, regulate yourself before you go and address that, because otherwise it's just, you know, you're escalating things.
I think it's about being present too.
Yeah.
I really struggle with that. And I think I mean, I'm sure there's like a whole list of childhood trauma that I could refer to, but I think even like business wise, it's like when you're running a company and like I have like the agency and then I have the podcast and then I have like the brand collabs. It's like you have so much going on that there's no room to like pause. You have to like execute.
Yes.
And it's a really positive trait for business.
Yeah.
But it is not positive for relationships.
Right.
And so it's having to like almost like take a breath and slow down and not be in a rush to like have a conversation or feel feelings.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming that like having children has been almost like healing as well though.
It's been the most incredible thing for my mental health, I think. As much as it's like exhausting and like, you know, very draining at times, it's just been, I think the word is healing. You know, like living through my kids and making sure that I'm like nurturing their emotions and creating a safe space for them to feel and be who they want to be. Like, it's just been, I mean, it's just been huge for me.
You get to like reparent.
Yeah. I mean, I think like any parent that thinks like, or questions themselves like, am I a good parent? Like, I think you are.
Yeah.
Because if you care enough to like be worried about it, it's like you care enough that you're a good parent. So I've like had to like tell myself that, like, because, you know, as a working mom and I have more than one job, I am very busy. And so my time with them is limited. And sometimes I feel guilty about it. I'm like, am I doing enough for them? And I don't want them to like grow up feeling like they didn't have a present mom. And I just do like my very best to be present when they're around.
I think this goes back to being unfiltered though too, and like being unapologetic and authentically yourself, because I look at my parents, specifically like my mom, and I'm like, I wish she would have like pursued more of like what she loved, even though it was chaotic. Like I have a brother with Down syndrome and then I have three brothers. Okay. So like she like full-time hustle as a mom. Yeah. But I think that she would have been a lot emotionally healthier to us and happier if she would have been doing like what she loved. Yes. And so I can imagine, I mean, I obviously don't have kids yet, but I think for me, like battling that, I think just knowing that you are being like 100% like you and living your purpose will reflect in a way that will like resonate with them.
Yeah, I mean, that's like my goal and my hope is that they'll like look back and see like that their mom worked really hard and did cool things. And, you know, obviously I'm doing it to provide for my family. So, and they see it like now, like it's so cute. Like they know what a brand is. They know what products are. It's like, they know words that I'm like, no normal 4-year-old is like speaking like this.
So Capri's unboxings.
Exactly. I mean, it's like, they've picked up on a lot. And I think that, you know, in the long run, they'll look back and think like, okay, my parents lived. And I mean, I could go on for days about this. It's like my husband and I really like prioritize us and making sure that we get to go travel solo and date nights and see our friends. And, you know, as much as our kids are our number one priority, it's like we have to take care of ourselves as well. So,
well, you can't be your best self if you're like stressed and miserable and not doing fun things.
Yeah, exactly. Like I need the full like package when it comes to life.
Totally. So. Okay. Back to kind of shifting into your career, and we'll get back into like mental health stuff too, because I have a couple questions. But like you decide to start Lux Unfiltered. Where did the idea come from, and how did like the shift into like entrepreneur influencer to now like entrepreneur influencer brand?
You know, obviously I had been doing what I was doing online for like a good 10 years before I even came to this point, but half of that time was like to nobody. So I had like a good 5 years where I was like really monetizing, treating it as a full-time job and a business. And then the conversation of just like longevity and like where was I going and sustainability, because I knew like eventually there'd be a time where I'm not sharing my whole life and I'm not going to be taking outfit photos forever. And so I knew I wanted to start a brand, but self-tanning was not something that it was like on my mind forever. It was sort of like the idea sparked because so many people online would ask me like, how are you so tan all the time? And I grew up by the beach. I've always been, you know, like a beach girl. I love being tan and I always feel like my best in the sun and when I'm suntan, and I wear less makeup and you wear more clothes. You just feel like confident when you have a tan. So that's like, something
more snatched.
Yeah, exactly. Like everything just feels better to me when I have a tan. And so when people started to like ask me all the time how I was tan and like what I was using, I realized like I had nothing to point them to in terms of a product. And as an influencer, like your job is to constantly like, you know, share your life and get the look and link it.
Totally.
And I just realized like there was nothing. So I had the idea to start the perfect self tanner because I had tried everything and there were so many pain points. And I felt like if I could like address even one or two of these, like I'd be on to something amazing. And then in the process of creating our first product, which is our gradual body tanner, we addressed all the pain points. I was like, this is too good to be true. Like, why has no one else done this already if it's possible?
Yeah.
And so we were very excited that we like came to this product that was so spectacular and clean. I was pregnant when I developed it, so I wanted to make sure it was clean.
Yeah, I remember, and it's so good.
Yeah,
it's so good.
thank you.
The only reason I don't use it all the time is because I'm like I need to be dark tomorrow type person.
Yeah,
but it's an amazing product.
Thank you. I get that. For me, it's like I'm like a every other day person. Like I'm just like year round maintaining my tan.
Totally.
So it just works into my routine. But I sort of fell into it. The idea came to me because of my community, which is incredible. But it also just ties back into my lifestyle and like what like fuels my confidence.
Don't even get me started on the body blur. I'm obsessed with the body blur.
Love that
I've gotten everyone on it. Literally everyone. Because
so
it's
sweet.
amazing. I told you, like, I get spray tans.
Yeah.
But, like, when I wear it on my legs, I get, like, 10 compliments
You're
from
like
people.
Barbie legs.
Like, yeah, and men are, like, telling me my legs look amazing. And they're not even really, like, hitting on me. They're like, your legs are like, and I'm like, thank you, Lux Unfiltered. It's amazing.
That's so sweet.
So I get everybody on it. It's amazing products. They're so good. And it's so aligned with you. And I think something you did so beautifully is, like, you built a community for like a decade to a point where like they trusted you so much that it's like sold out pretty immediately when you launched, right?
It was pretty exciting. We obviously had no idea what to expect. It was a completely new category, and obviously like we're self-funded to this day. So everything is like our own risk. And so launching that was actually so crazy looking back because we had just had a baby. We had bought a home. My husband was a full-time entertainment attorney. I was an influencer. And we were like, let's just like put in our life savings and start a brand. And let's see how it goes. And so
were you scared, like so anxious and scared,
you know, like,
or were you confident?
I wasn't. I felt I maybe it was just delusional, but my husband, who's like the financial legal guy, was like on like just like, you know, pins and needles, so worried. And we launched, I think we sold out that same week. And with beauty, it's like crazy. The minimums are so incredibly high that we were like, we had no idea what to expect. So we sold out first week. He quit his job as an attorney to focus full time on the brand. He needed like proof of concept. Yeah. And then like that's just kind of how it ended. Like
so crazy.
Yeah.
So cool. I feel like we're very similar. We're like, when you know yourself well intuitively, like you kind of aren't anxious if you know something is like supposed to be done and you're like aligned, but like obviously it's still scary.
Yeah.
How did the transition go from Paul quitting his job to come work with you? Oh my
gosh.
Because like, again, like I think I understand his anxiety because he doesn't live in your brain.
Right.
So people thought I was crazy when I got this studio.
Yeah.
They were like, looking at me like, you're not big enough to do that. Like, kind of like I could tell they were like, what the fuck? And I was like, no, like, it's a good idea. I already know. Like, it's a good idea. Yeah. But no one else knows your vision, especially like, he's your husband. He's like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, yeah.
And then he has this amazing, successful job and decides to quit and come like work with you.
Right.
Not for you, but I can imagine that's a little bit weird.
Yeah. And also just to like comment on what you just said, like, I don't think the number has anything to do with it. When I launched the business, I did not have the amount of followers I had now. And I remember vividly feeling like, wow, this is premature. Like, I don't have 1 million followers. Like, who am I to start a brand at this point? Like, I was very nervous about that. Yeah. Like, I felt like it was premature. But my husband was the one who was like really pushing it forward. Like, no, like we got to do it now. You got to get in now before everyone's doing it kind of thing. So thank God for him pushing me. But to answer your question, working together was the hardest time in our marriage so far.
I can imagine.
I genuinely felt like this is how it ends. Like, why did we do this? Like, this was a really bad decision, bad idea. It's hard because he's very type A lawyer and I'm very type A creative. And it's like so different in different, you know, like we just operate in different ways. He was used to working in a firm with people as a team and I was always solo. I was like a one-woman show. I never had an assistant. I never had a team. It was just me. So when we started working together day to day and he would like ask me questions, like I would view it as him like questioning me, like hovering over my shoulder, micromanaging me. And I was like snapping at him left and right because obviously you're comfortable with your spouse. So I'm like telling him to fuck off every 5 seconds. And then like by the end of the day, he's like, after 45 fuck offs from you, like I don't like you and I don't want to like eat dinner with you.
Oh my God.
So, you know, it was rough. It was rough. And then there was the side of him where it's like, he's very excited that we've created this business that is, you know, booming, and he took it very seriously. He's very like dedicated. So he'd be in bed at night. I'm like watching Kardashians on the TV at 10 p.m. and he's like asking me questions like business related. And I'm like, do you feel like now is the time for me to like answer a serious question? Like,
yeah, because
no.
there's no boundary. Because
no
you
boundary.
like live together.
Yeah. And like, it was essentially like learning how to set boundaries in the house because we worked out of our home. We had our kid there. I mean, everything was just in the house. So it was like we moved our office outside to our detached garage. It was like, now business is only there.
Yeah.
Business hours are there. Don't ask me questions when I'm in bed or if I'm cooking or if I'm with the kids. Like, absolutely not. I had to like reel it in terms of just like the snappiness and like the cussing him out and just like being like, just like I feel like I was being really defensive because I felt like I was being questioned, but he was really just trying to be like a team player.
And this was pre-therapy too.
Oh,
this was like way before.
Way before. And then I think what also helped is like we started to hire people. We only had like 1 or 2 employees like a year in or so, and you know suddenly there's a person there, so I can't be like cussing him out all day, and vice versa. Just for the record, like don't feel sorry for him. Like he's got a mouth on him.
No, I imagine it's like so hard. I couldn't even imagine like a significant other coming into like a self brand, because it is like a self brand, and I think a lot of people don't understand like this part of like the influencer world, which is like your brand is essentially like you and your brain, and so to have to like translate it specifically to your significant other and then almost give them like a piece of you in that way, I could imagine is difficult. And it was probably difficult for him to like find his identity in all of it too.
Yes. I mean, he like couldn't care less. Like he's one of those people.
He's a dude.
Yeah. But also like I kind of learned this from him over the years is like he's also like unapologetically himself and like so confident to a fault. Like he doesn't give 2 shits what people think about him. And he's like, yeah, I don't give a shit. I sell self-tanner and I'm like crushing it. Like, wouldn't you? Like, you know, he's like, that's like his perspective. And I feel like that's so cool about him is that he's like not like ashamed or embarrassed or anything. It's like we're partners in it. We're 50-50. He contributes just as much as I do in a different way. And now we have like a really great working relationship. It's taken years of, you know, just experience and practice and working on it and effort. But, you know, now we've like reached a good point where it's like,
so cool.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's really fucking cool.
You. It's exciting.
How have you like balanced showing up online? Because like the bread and butter of what you do is like showing these BTS moments, like the behind the scenes. Like how do you manage though, like protecting like you in your life? Because even me, like I'm not even close to where you are. And it's like I noticed that like this is my 7th or 8th year. And I'm like I like don't have the energy anymore to show up online the way I used to, because I'm like almost like burnt myself out. So it's finding like new balances of like, I want to share, which is, I think the pod is a good space for that.
Right.
But like, it can get exhausting to show up, but then you don't want to lose that community trust.
Right. I mean, I'd say the last like 4 years, I have really gone through like a roller coaster with it. I went through some changes with management where I actually was like a free agent for a year and I didn't tell anybody. And it was the most like liberating, happy year as in my influencer career for a long time. Yeah. And the reason being is like, I wasn't pressured to take jobs or partnerships, and I wasn't pushed to do anything at all. I was just completely free. Yeah. And I like allowed myself to, in that year, really just go back to like what brought me joy and happiness. This is the same year that I was like in my therapy journey. So it all really worked well together. I was like, I'm free here. I'm like focusing on this. Like I'm like rewiring myself and like healing and finding a new love for what I do again. And I felt like that year I really was like, I'm obsessed with my home and like home content and remodeling and just like being a source of inspiration. I'm like, that's what I'm doing this year. And I'm cooking more and I'm going to document it more. And that was like such a fun year for me. And then, you know, I feel like I got busy with work. We went into Sephora. that was very demanding, a huge like learning curve for the company. And suddenly like I was so needed, still am. And I suddenly was like, well, I something has to give, and like I have to pull back on social. Like I just physically couldn't do all of it.
Yeah.
So I was like going up to the office like basically 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And that really like took a hit on my socials. Like I felt like I was like really disconnected from the community. Obviously I still shared. I would never just like go like, you know, I would never disappear.
Yeah.
But it was just kind of like breadcrumby.
Yeah.
And I feel like people could feel it. And then I like circled back at like the end of last year and I was like, God, this feels so shitty. Like what am I doing? I felt lost. I was like, do I just like call it quits here? Like, am I done? Like I need to prioritize. I started to really have to like think, what am I going to do here? And then the start of this year, I felt like a little burnt out. I was almost like, okay, this is like, I could feel it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just like
getting close to the cliff.
Yeah. And then a couple months ago, I just kind of like took a pause. I was like, you know what? I'm just like reshifting everything. I'm going back to like what I did in 24 when I was so happy, like at my peak with just creating and being excited and motivated by it. And then, you know, that's like where I'm at now. I'm like, I'm doing it in a way that I'm like, it brings me joy and it doesn't feel like I'm forcing it. You know?
Yeah. Because I think that's compromising the mission, which is like to be unfiltered and be like yourself.
Yeah.
But I like that you're speaking to this because I think like not even as a creator, like as an entrepreneur or anyone listening who's like juggling or trying to start a business or they're doing their business now, it's like there are seasons to things. There's a lot of talk of like balance. And it's kind of like, I don't know if I view it as like balance. It's more like I grinded for like years and years. And then like recently, same thing, like was hitting like a cliff. I was working till like 1 a.m. in here and it like doesn't help that like, you know, I live so close to like the building. And then like, I'm like watching myself kind of like fade a little bit. And then I'm like, oh my God, like I'm unwell. So like, I like had this moment where I was like, okay, I need to shift back into mental health. But like, I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't grind like I did for the last 5 years. So I can like look at money and like the 6-month partnerships and the 3-month partnerships and be like, okay, I can dedicate the next 6 months to 12 months actually shifting into a different season because I grinded so hard. So I think it's about like finding the times of like when there's no balance to like focusing on your mental health and then back because you can't really do it all at the same time.
No, you can't. That's a good point. It's a good way to look at it too, seasons, because even like with the brand, like we have summertime is actually like our slowest season because obviously people are self-tanning more in the winter. So I've always kind of like looked forward to summertime because I love summer in general, but it's like now I get to like take a little bit of a step back from the company. I can focus on my content creation, be home with my kids. Like it's kind of great. But I feel like this season thing makes perfect sense. Like, you just got to do it.
Yeah, like you can't like give 100% to your routines and your mental health 24/7 as you're trying to like try to build a company that you're eventually going to want to like sell.
No, you're going to burn yourself out in like 2 months.
Yeah. You're done.
Yeah.
You're obviously like a really badass entrepreneur. I look up to you. I think you're so cool. As I told you, I'm 28 and I think if I can do like half the things you've done, I will be like impressed.
You will.
Like very impressed. It's so cool to see what you guys have done. But like, I'm assuming there's like moments of anxiety. There's moments of like, oh my God, this product isn't selling or whatever. Is it just over time you've developed kind of like the skill to be like, nope, we're putting like anxiety in the back seat? Or like what would you say to someone who's kind of like maneuvering that?
Yeah. Anxiety is a tough one because for me it's like I can't control it. If it comes on, I can't like rationalize with myself to make it go away. But I have learned that when there's things that are outside of your control, it's not worth like focusing and fixating and obsessing, you know, at least like give yourself like that. I've learned in business, like every single day there's a challenge, whether it's a big one or a small one, like every single day, like there's gonna be a problem. And in the beginning you feel like everything's a big deal. Everything is like a fire and everything's an emergency. And then you start like getting into it and you're like, okay, well this is my everyday. So we're not gonna act like that every day. Otherwise you die. But I feel like the letting go of things that you can control is like the only way to move forward. And I think you have to be willing to pivot and just problem solve. And that's something that I would say to any business owner, you know, new or further down the line is like, you can't just like be obsessed with one route. You have to be willing to like take a different route because nothing really goes according to plan.
Totally. I've talked a lot about this on the podcast, but like 3 years ago, I kind of like plateaued with money from influencing. Like I hit the 100K mark and I was like, that's great. I can pay my rent and like eat here in Southern California with that. But like, how am I going to scale?
Right.
Like, to your point, like, this isn't like longevity wise. Like, how am I going to make more money? Like, how am I going to be able to like continue to grow? Because that's my brain. Like, I'm totally entrepreneur at heart. But I was like, I'm not growing. The algorithm sucks. Like, yada, yada, yada. And I became super anxious because I was like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I had everyone around me asking about like socials. And like, it was the time where founders specifically, were starting to realize that they needed to be online.
Right.
And so everyone was coming to me for advice. And I was just like giving them advice. And then I had a couple friends be like, you should start an agency. And I was like, no, I'm not supposed to do that. Like, I'm the creator. Like, I'm not going to do that.
Like, I'm the talent.
I'm the talent. But it was this, I almost like, not even in that way, but it was more of like, my mission is to like make people feel confident and speak to the people who like are mentally unwell. Like, it's not my job to like do hospitality projects and work with founders and whatever. And I had to have like a huge ego death.
Right.
And I spent like a lot of time like kind of like grieving almost. It sounds so stupid, but like grieving the like process of like letting go of like the plan I thought was going to unfold. And looking back now, what I like, it was so pathetic and stupid for that. And I have found like so much, not just like more money, but joy in being able to flex skills that I haven't been able to flex as an influencer.
Right.
And so I think to your point, like you have to be able to look at like your trajectory and be like, what is gonna like work for me? And like this was the plan, but like that doesn't even make sense anymore. Right. So like how am I gonna move and shift without it taking over like my identity or like making it feel like I'm doing something wrong or I failed?
No, and that's really cool that you've done that, because I feel like also, I mean, I'm an influencer. That's how I started. I feel like you have more respect for, you know, having all these different avenues.
Totally.
I feel like when I was strictly a quote unquote blogger, people like, first of all, half the world didn't know what that meant. You'd have to explain it. It's like having to explain what you do
I know.
is like embarrassing and a little degrading, to be honest. And so I actually love that you have all these things going on. I feel like it just shows that you're just a very intellectual person. You're very intelligent.
Thank you. I appreciate it. To your point though, like I couldn't let it go. Like I couldn't see it as like this thing that made me multifaceted. I saw it as this like anxiety inducing having to like let go of the plan, which is hard, especially for people like us who are like very type A, very like, because I'm the same way as you, like type A creative, not type A lawyer.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like there is a huge difference. I feel like the type C thing really resonates with me.
No, or like depending on what it is, but I also think it's around like yourself, like brand and vision. Like it's very hard to be like flexible when it comes to like your mission. And so I always like tell people, especially on the podcast, it's like you, to your point, you have to be able to be flexible with like what you see for your future. I was raised pretty religious. I don't like identify with it as much anymore, but something I loved about the concept was that like you're not like omniscient or omnipotent, like you're not all knowing and not all powerful. And I try to channel that, like who am I to think that I know what's going on?
You know what's best. No, I
thank God.
That's a great way to think about it.
I'm so happy you came. This has been like so exciting for me.
No, I'm so happy to be here.
Please share just quickly before you leave, like what's new with Lux Unfiltered. It's not just like gradual tan. It's not just the body blur, even though I'm obsessed. Like what else do you got going on for people?
This summer we launched our first SPF. It's a tinted, shimmering, beautiful SPF oil. So that was our first summer product that we're so excited about.
And the party was so fun.
Thanks
for having me.
Of course. Thanks for coming. And that was really fun. But that's kind of like the first of our sun care category that we're hoping to expand. We've got a lot in the pipeline, and we're just super excited that we're growing in Sephora, and they'll hopefully have more of our products soon. Everyone always asks. But yeah, I mean, you know, we're just here to kind of give you that glow, to give you the best confidence.
Yeah. Looking back from like when you started, like what's something you wish you could say to yourself at the beginning now that you have like how many products now? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
We have like almost 30 products.
That's insane.
I know, it is crazy. I think like if I could say anything is like just slow down. Like I feel like I was in this like rat race to like pump out products left and right, and like anytime someone would launch something that I had in the pipeline, I'd freak out that like I didn't do it first, which is so silly. It was just like, it's like also impossible. Like just like slow down, stick to your brand, stick to your identity. I feel like there's room for everybody. And I think like good things take time. And so for me, like it's more about quality over quantity. And 30, or I think we're at 30 products at this point. It might sound like a lot to some, but to me, it's like feel like that's actually really little. So I'm like, I really focus on like the quality of everything.
Yeah. I love the under eye patches.
Oh
I
my
have
God,
them in the
yes.
office. I wear them in here when I'm just like walking around.
I love that. And those are like one of my favorite products.
They're so good. Two-parter. So I ask everyone that comes on the podcast, like looking back at your journey, like the ups and downs, there's so much more to go, but like looking back at the last like 15 years of like being a creator and now a founder, like how do you see it? How do you see it all?
I mean, I'm just grateful for it all. I think it's been such a wild ride, and I've gone through so many different evolutions and versions of myself through it all. I like to think that I'm only getting more refined and more mature and a little bit more grounded as I grow up and, you know, have my kids. But it's been crazy, and it's something that I would have never expected or planned for, and I'm just kind of going with it and seeing where it takes me.
Thank you again so much for coming
thank
on.
you.
Thank you for inspiring me to do what I do. I would not be
I feel like I didn't even do anything for
you
you.
did.
So
You totally did. I
help
always
you.
talk about you in regard to people and they're like, you guys are so like your style is so different. Especially at that time. You were way more bohemian like back then. And I was like, it's not that. It's like I feel like I resonate with like her business mind and like showing up. And it really did give me that push because at the time, like no one was talking real online. Like you really were like the OG TikToker, like because that didn't exist.
Right.
And so to me, it's like, yeah, we were being like unapologetic and unfiltered about different things.
Yes.
But I was like, okay, if she's doing it, she's building this community, they're engaged. You were my proof of concept. Like that was my Paul evidence
I
stuff.
love that.
So it was like, okay, I can talk about this like deep shit while also sharing my outfits too.
Yeah.
So
that's amazing.
thank you for that. I'm glad we're connected now.
Me too.
Please share your socials where people can find you and where they can find the brand as well.
Yeah, you can find Lux Unfiltered on Sephora. Online, it's just at Lux Unfiltered. And then for me, it's just at Sivan Ayla.
Yay. Thank you,
Thank
Sivan.
you.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode and I hope you leave here feeling motivated and inspired. Do not forget to rate and review the pod on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And don't forget to follow How I See It Pod so you can keep up with podcast updates and see who's coming on next. And if you're not already, come join the fam and follow at How Han Sees It. Thank you guys.